afternoon. This is Blu Laker, and we're at Radio Tribune right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. There we go. And I'm sitting here with a co-host today, Chris, and Chris is going to sit with me when we talk about the oncoming war. Well, you know, we're really in a war already, so actually we're in a bunch of wars, and maybe we don't even know it because we don't recognize them. They're not declared wars, but we're there nonetheless. And I want to go back in history a little bit and talk about the American Revolution. That was our first big war as a country. And, you know, it was necessary because we were under the domination of the British Empire. Mm-hmm. And that's back in the 1700s, and they, you know, at one time the British Empire was the biggest in the world. Now I think, I don't think that's the case. No. But we decided as Americans at that time that we didn't want to be under the dictates of a foreign government who was ruthless and taxed us to death. Mm-hmm. So, but the whole thing about that was, it was the farmers and the ranchers and so forth that really took a hold of this and made it happen. And so, Chris, I want to ask you this. As far as those people back there in the 17th century were concerned, were they unified?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Well, when I say unified, were they, did they have, at the time, any kind of an assembly of any sort, whether it was for you know, political reasons or other reasons?
No.
And so we decided that if we were going to break from the British Empire, that we really needed to have our own political system.
Yes.
And due to the atrocities that were committed against us, we decided to take them on.
That's right.
And that was the first shot that was heard around the world, was at the beginning of the freedom for the United States.
That's right.
And we didn't, during the first year or two, we didn't really get to the point of having a Constitution and a Bill of Rights, but the object was to be self-governed.
That's right.
And that was the best thing that we did at those times. So, but even during the American Revolution, even with farmers and ranchers who only had pitchforks, and they had some guns too, because they did some hunting, but it wasn't a regulated military unit. No. It was just regular people. And one of the things we need to talk about today is regular people, but we'll get into that in the future conversation about that as we go through this today. And it was, once the rally call was made, and Paul Revere said the British are coming, we were alerted to the fact that we were in trouble. Now, I don't know whether they looked at it as we're in trouble or, hey, this is where it all begins. It's hard to say at this point. But we do know that it took place. And it took the bravery of hundreds of thousands of Americans to overcome the British forces. Right. But it was a war. And in war, I think the point that I'm trying to get to is that there are always deaths. People get killed.
That's right.
By the enemy. And once you establish who the enemy is, either you're going to get them or they're going to get you until such a point that you weaken them to where they can have no more resistance. And so that was really part of the American Revolution, was to weaken them, and we did. And we had a lot of attacks. Interesting history if we were going to go through it. But today, I'm trying to get to specifics in terms of what we're doing today and the wars that we're in. And, of course, between here and there, we have to talk about some of the battles that we took on during that earlier period of time. Right. The Spanish-American War, for example, the Civil War, you know, where 1 million people, American citizens, picked up their arms and in a lot of cases shot their brothers and sisters, not because they were next to them, but because they were on opposite sides. Because when you choose your enemies, you're also choosing your friends.
That's right.
And because they had their own beliefs, not necessarily, even in the same family, were they of the same opinion. And we did wind up killing a lot of our own people.
Yes.
During especially the Civil War. And when you think about 1 million people died in that battle who were here on American soil, and you say, well, how do we distinguish right from wrong, or the enemy from those who are patriots?
Yeah.
What's your answer on that, Chris?
I think anybody that doesn't want to put America first and put Americans first and doesn't pledge allegiance to that flag, you're not a patriot. You're the enemy.
Well,
I think if you were okay with the British taxing us without representation, then you were an enemy. Because that's why our forefathers risked their lives to come over here and write the Constitution, which was basically a declaration of war. That's what that was. Yeah. They risked their lives. They put their signatures on that piece of paper. That's a death sentence, basically, what they was giving themselves. So, those people, we owe them our life because they were our founding fathers. And at that time, like you said, the British Empire was the biggest empire that had ever existed on this planet. And when they signed their names to that piece of paper, they were signing their own lives away and their families' lives away. And so, we owe them everything, and it's still like that today. You got so many people in Congress and in the House of Representatives that they're not patriots. Donald J. Trump is a patriot, and he's getting up every day at his age and fighting for our country. And we got people like Paul Ryan and other people that, they only care about themselves. They only care about getting reelected. And so, to me, we still have that same struggle today, Lou. We still have that same struggle.
Well, that the American Revolution was actually begun before it began, because when the Nina, the Pinto, and the Santa Maria came over here, those people came here because they wanted to get away from the oppression that they suffered under the British Empire.
Yes.
Well, the British Empire followed them, if you were, and that's how we've gotten involved with that. So it was a question of trying to be righteous, and they were concerned about their religious freedom. They were concerned about the taxes and other things that they had no control over. And see, what you said just a second ago, Chris, is true, that we don't have any representation. Okay? I personally have sent over 200 letters out to the U.S. Senate, to the Pennsylvania Senate, and to the Nevada Senate, and I never got one single response. Not one. Now, if you're going to represent your constituent, and I happen to be a constituent of at least Nevada, then don't I, or shouldn't I enjoy the privilege of respect in getting some kind of an answer on something that's so important to the United States? In the particular case was Obamacare and how we could get rid of it, and how we already have insurance available to us right now called Cobra that we could adopt because it's already the law, and we could do away with all the BS that's associated with trying to remove Obamacare and come in with a new program. And because it's already an existing program and is law, then all we have to do is amend it to make the changes that are necessary for the welfare of this country.
That's right.
And it does not exclude anybody. Even pre-existing conditions are in the Cobra.
That's right.
So it's a question of how do we get this message to them? And again, probably more important, how do we get them to act? That's really what the crux of the situation is today. But as we came into history and we had the Mexican-American War or the Spanish-American War, and then we had, of course, the Civil War, and after the Civil War was World War I and World War II, and then we're unfortunately looking at World War III. At least the opportunity for it to surface are here. And that's because there's so much discord in the world, and because even as a Christian, and during the 15th to 16th century, we had the Crusades, And so we were in battles. And at that particular time, and the reason I bring that up is really simple. We were in a battle with the Muslims then. Mm-hmm. That goes back to the Christian Crusades.
That's right.
Am I saying that everything that happened in the Christian Crusades was ethical, moral? No. But then we weren't there to control that. But if you look at that and some of the inhuman things that they did, waterboarding probably was minor compared to what they did back then.
That's right.
And the reason they did it is because they wanted Christianity to prevail. Unfortunately, it did. But now we're under attack by the same people that we had to fight a long time ago.
That's right.
So, Chris, what is your understanding and possibly opinion on what we should do with, now, we know that back then they didn't call them Islamic radical terrorists. We just called them Muslims.
Right.
Now, isn't it funny today that we have the same group of people who say, well, we're not Islamic radicals at all. And then we say, well, how do we decide on how can we do that? Because we've vetted so many people, and yet so many people have attacked the United States.
That's right.
You know, there's approximately 40 acts of terrorism that have been committed just in this country alone against Christianity.
Yeah.
It began wholeheartedly under the Obama administration when they decided to put into law 93 acts against Christianity. 93 acts against Christianity. Are they trying to demoralize us or the future of America? Don't you feel that it is very important for children especially to have moral standards?
Absolutely.
Isn't it important that we have education?
Absolutely.
I mean, and to be first in the world.
That's right.
Not 27.
That's right.
And so when we look at these things and you say, well, you know, their kids' grades are going down. Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that they don't have any moral background?
Absolutely it does. And that starts, everybody, my mom was a teacher for over 25 years in Chicago, and everybody always, they point the finger at the student. It's not the student, it's the parents. My mom used to always say, if you want to know what's wrong with that kid, go home. That's all you got to do. And I went home with her a lot, with a lot of those kids. And there was the problem. The problem was in the house before they ever got to school. They had problems. So, and, you know, it starts with the parents. The parents don't believe in God. The kids don't believe in God. There's no respect in the house anymore. So how are they supposed to go to school and respect the teacher? They don't even respect their parents. They don't respect their grandparents. I go in these stores and malls sometime and you hear the way these kids talk to their parents. And I just remember there's no way in the heck I could have talked to my dad like that. I'd be counting my teeth on the ground. So it's just a lack of respect, and that starts with taking prayer out of school, taking God out of school. You can't pray in public anymore. I mean, they want to take the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag out. You know, you got people sitting down during football games when they're singing the national anthem. I mean, it's ridiculous what's going on in this country. It is a war on Christianity. It's a war on American values. And luckily, the people stood up this past election and they voted for Donald Trump. And I did a whole show on that today. Who's un-American and who's not? You know, these people that are fighting Donald Trump, they're un-American. You know, Donald Trump is a patriot. He's not even getting paid to be president. He's deferring his check. He don't even want the money. He's doing it for free because he loves this country.
Yeah. Isn't it wonderful that we have somebody that has the ability to do that and has done it willingly and freely?
That's right.
Nobody asked him to give up his money.
That's right.
Okay? He was entitled to it. He's still entitled to it. And what right do we have to take that for granted? We should not be taking those things for granted. You know, today we're talking about the climate, and climate control and the Paris Agreement. And the issue here is not about climate. You know, it's kind of like the Civil War. The Civil War was not about slavery. It was about states' rights. Slavery didn't come into it the latter part of the war, which is fine. We got the Emancipation Proclamation.
That's right.
And we have, as it should have always been, equality for all colors. And really, that was a great accomplishment by Lincoln. But there's several things that if we have time to today, I'd like to talk a little bit more about Lincoln and what he did to play into the war, and how he was dedicated, of course, to the Union as opposed to the South. And there's always two sides to an argument.
That's right.
And there was positives on both sides.
Yes.
But now we can't even have a Confederate flag. For what reason?
Yeah.
Who in the world cares? I mean, we can wave Mexican flags.
That's right.
We can wave Israeli flags, but people who truly believed they were doing the right thing with states' rights during the Civil War are denied the opportunity of being presented historically in the true historical sense. That is to say, what were the facts? What is the facts? And let's bring that to light. Not to go on just what happened later in the war.
Well, it's like you said, Lou, and it's the same thing that's going on today. I mean, if you disagree with any of these left-wing nuts, you're called a racist. That's an old trick, like you said. That was used hundreds of years ago during the Civil War. They called my family's from the South. My mom was from Cuba. My dad's family is from Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama. And I'm telling you, they're very proud of their culture down there. My dad is very proud to be a country boy, to be a cowboy. He's very proud of the rebel flag, and he's African American. But that stood for their states down there. That Confederate flag meant something to him. Well, it meant something to his family. His forefathers fought in the Civil War.
That's what meant something to him. That's what happens when you are a patriot. And if you're a patriot, not only of your country, but a patriot of God, now you're tying two valuable things together for the betterment of not only this country, but for other countries and the welfare of our great children or grandchildren who are going to be taken over at some point in time. Looking at you here today, Chris, and you're looking at me, and we could flip a coin to see who's going first. You actually have a better chance because I got you by 20-some years. But the point is,
I'm married though, so that might even.
That's true. Yeah, with all the domestic violence and everything that's going on, you never know. And I was just thinking today about that, and people do react. Men especially, we have a tendency to lean towards our women. Because we need their support and so forth. But on the other hand, sometimes we're very abrupt with them, and we do things that we feel ashamed of later.
Yes, sir.
But the family, as you have suggested earlier on, is what keeps the family and the children in line and sees that they get the proper education, to see that they have a chance in the future, and hopefully guide them in the right direction so that they can have a great job and an opportunity. And there's a lot of things that offer that. The military service, for example. Yes, you have to put in 20 years, but you're growing anyway. If you didn't know it, and you were 15 years old yesterday, you're 15 years and and 1 day older, 1 day at a time. And I have been here for 25,000 years. 25,000 days. 25,000 days. See how time does fly. 25,000 days, and I don't remember the first couple of years. And that's kind of strange, but no, it's not, because that's what we do as we grow, as we learn. We learn things that we didn't know, and when we stop learning, that's when we start dying.
That's right.
And I'm learning, so just keep in mind, folks, that I'm going to keep learning every day so I don't die.
That's right.
But anyhow, getting back to this, and what we were trying to do is connect the dots, and we were saying, all right, now, currently today, there's two major issues that we're facing. One is ISIS and the other is North Korea. Those are two elements that we have to deal with. But before we get away with and skipping some of the wars and everything, we need to bring to attention what a war is all about, and and why we have never been able to completely dissolve wars around the world. Because there's always happening something in Somalia, South Africa, Nicaragua, just everywhere, Iraq, Iran,
That's right.
Saudi Arabia, all of that, we still have it. Here's the main thing, is that when we go to war, we're not going in there to play 10 soldiers with and move the pieces from left to right. We're going in there to conquer them because they have become our enemy.
That's right.
Now, when we say conquered, what does that mean? Diplomatic relationship? Well, diplomatic relationships are great. The problem is they don't always work because somebody feels they're getting cheated. And because of that they continue with the bliss. And the problem with that is exactly that, is we go into these wars, and are we creating mass destruction? Are we, in the Civil War is a perfect example. 1 million men, women, and I guess a few children in the mix died because of something that they believed in.
Yeah.
And the Islam or Muslim community deeply believe in their faith. Are they right or wrong? Well, that's not for me to say. I believe in God, you believe in God, and that's our privilege and our right. And if we feel so deeply about that, then we commit ourselves to doing the Christian thing. And whatever that Christian thing is, in defense of our home and our family, we must do. When we go into war, whether it's in the First World War, the Second World War, we're going there to kill the enemy. That's our objective. We send all kinds of planes and ships and munitions to other countries, and unfortunately we haven't had one here. I mean, I don't want to forget the Alamo, I don't want to forget the Civil War, but I'm saying that we haven't really had an outside war in the United States itself. But nonetheless, all these wars are dedicated to one thing, and that's killing the enemy.
That's right.
Now, if that's the case, and we looked at the Second World War, for example, where we actually took the Japanese and put them in concentration camps, and we did that for two reasons. Number one, our safety. Number two, their safety. And you can say, well, what are you talking about? Well, those Japanese who may have been faithful, loyal, patriotic Americans, having been found out by their adversaries, would have been laid open to all kinds of murder and schemes of that nature. So I'm trying to get to the point when we say, okay, we recognize that there are collateral damages incurred with every war. And if we get to the point, and I think we're almost there now, where the Muslims have said that they want to take over the world. There's only going to be one religion, that's going to be Islam. And they've picked on the United States, which happens to be the biggest Christian community in the world, with 85% of the population belonging to Christianity.
That's right.
So are they going to wipe us out, or are we going to wipe them out? Now you can say, now you're talking really negative talk. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what war is all about. And that's what I was trying to point out to you, Chris, is that when we have to go after the enemy, we have to go over and we have to make them give up. And if they're not going to give up by themselves, then we have to take the necessary steps.
Right.
But I want to go back into history just a little bit further, because this is one of the main things that we are missing here today.
Are we going to go longer? Or?
Okay, that is the Indian Wars. And I'm talking about...
Are y'all going longer?
I got the customer. Are we going to go to 3 o'clock?
You want to go to 3?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm leaving.
Yes, sir. All right.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We're not on now?
You are on.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to this. Excuse the interruption. But when I'm talking about the Indian Wars, I'm not talking about a war in India. I'm talking about here in the United States.
Yes.
We came into America on the Pinto de Nina and the Santa Maria, and guess who was there to help us on the shores?
Indians.
The Indians, okay? And they taught us how to survive in this, at that time, cruel country. When I say cruel, I mean the weather and everything was not something that they had experienced over in England. That, there were other conditions like the availability of food and water, and the Indians helped us survive.
Yes, they did.
And as a matter of fact, they're the ones that introduced Thanksgiving, as a result of the appreciation from the Pilgrims, decided to have a Thanksgiving Day in thanks for what God had provided to them. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right, so if we look at that, now I want to take it a step further, that same thought, because all of a sudden, in the 1800s, we decided that the Indians were bad people. And we went about killing 500 tribes here in the United States, obliterating race. They didn't get them all, but they got most of the leaders and people with any intelligence. So they basically wiped out 500 nations of people. Now, when we say, do we have justification for do that? If the justification was, we want your land, we want your minerals, we want your water, I don't believe that was justification. Was it at that time that we became aggressors? Is that what was built into our mentality? Or was it the people that we elected who decided that we would be the aggressors? Who made the decision for us to become involved and to go out and kill the Indians and scalp them? And you can say, well, they scalped us first. Well, it's not a question of who did what to who first. It's a question of why did they do it, and did they encourage it? And there's something in the Patriot Act of today that says anybody who incites a civilian population is a domestic terrorist. We're going to keep that thought in mind. That's right in the Patriot Act that we have today for our guiding purposes. But back then, there were incidents that we provoked the Indians, and as a result, we went after them. The bottom line is that we did go after them, and we sent most of them to reservations, the ones that survived. But think about this. They didn't have the proper shoes and winter equipment to go traveling towards Canada during the time that they were ordered onto the reservations. And so not only and then we had Wounded Knee, which was an attack after we knew that we had them. And so after that, we had Wounded Knee, and of course we continued to slaughter more more people. So can it be said that was justification? And is there any way that murder on a mass scale like that, even a civil war, is justified?
That's a very, a lot of people have their own beliefs when it comes to that. I believe that there was always going to be a war between the Pilgrims, between the people that came here from England and the Indians. And I believe that, just my own belief system, that this country was given to us by the good Lord. I believe that. There are a lot of patriots that believe that. There are a lot of people that believe that this country was given to us by God to be a beacon, to be a leader around the world. I believe that in my heart and my soul, and I believe that that's why this is the greatest country on earth. I think it is. I think it always has been, and I think it always will be, as long as we continue to elect people like Donald Trump president, who's going to keep our country great. So that's just my own personal belief, and everybody wants to make it seem like the Indians or seem like people, they were, those people were murderers themselves. They murdered each other well before we ever got here. They had some of the worst wars between each other's tribes coming up from Mexico, and in Mexico, the Aztecs and all the way to the Sioux. They murdered millions of their own people. So that's why a lot of people called them savages when they got here. I mean, they killed a lot of innocent people that came here just looking for a better life. So you're absolutely right. I don't know who, threw the first blow or who shot the first arrow, but I do know this. I think this country was given to us for a reason, and I mean us, I mean Americans. I think that this is the greatest country on earth, and I think it's a Christian nation. I think it always will be, even though the left is trying to take God out of it. But this country will always be a Christian nation.
Didn't the Indians, in fact, worship God? They had different gods. They had the sun god. They had this god. They had that god. But they were people of faith. Yeah. And they appreciated. They had festivals and so forth to celebrate the seasons, to celebrate. Yeah. But so
did the Egyptians. And the Israelites proved there's only one God, and that's God, and He only has one Son, and that's Jesus Christ. And I think that just goes to show, to me, I always tell people this, how good of a people Christians are, because even though we know the truth, we still accept people. We don't have to, because it's been proven. It's a fact. There's only one God, and there's only one Son of God. And the Pharaoh learned that, as well as many other people. There's only one God. And ISIS is going to learn that. There's only one God, and there's only one Son of God. Muhammad might have been a prophet, but he wasn't the Son of God.
It doesn't seem to be that, there's a conflict, and we are actually, as you have mentioned before, in a war between Allah and God for the control of this country. Yeah. Is that a true statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so why, when there was 93 laws that were enacted by Obama against Christianity, why couldn't we stop him?
Well, because you got a whole bunch of socialists and communists in this country and in our Senate, and they elected him because Barack Hussein Obama, let's say his name, that's his whole name, was not born in this country. I don't believe that. There's been proof that he was born in Kenya. I think that Donald Trump was absolutely right. I think that birth certificate was a fake. And I think he was basically bought and put into the presidency to try and destroy this country more than it already was. And he failed. And every law that he passed is going to be taken back by Donald Trump, including Obamacare. This is not a socialist country. You should not be mandated what doctor you go to. What the heck is going on in the United States of America? This man was a disaster as a president. He had the worst Secretary of State in the history of mankind, Hillary Clinton. And we're paying the repercussions of the things that they passed, the Iranian deal where he gave billions of dollars to them to not build centrifuges for a couple of years until he got out of office. The things that he passed were absolutely ridiculous. And like Donald Trump said, he said it the other week, I inherited a mess.
Do you believe that Obama's a Muslim?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
absolutely,
I believe he is.
His father was. Absolutely, I do.
By his actions, he invited the Muslim community into the White House. He ignored the veterans of foreign wars and going to Arlington to honor our soldiers.
Yes.
It was just one thing after another, and I have to believe that he was under the direction of highly influential, wealthy people who understood where they wanted this country to go.
Yes.
And that as long as God prevailed, that wasn't going to happen. And so, therefore, they've decided that we can't have that. Yes. But it doesn't make any difference where they've tried it. It has always failed, whether it happens to be even in Russia or other places. People still have the beliefs, and deep down inside, they're going to cherish those, and they're going to stand up for the values that they have supported. And
well, listen, Lou, a lot of people, my dad was military 20 years, and he used to always tell me a lot of people believe in a lot of foolishness. I believed in the Easter Bunny until I was 8 years old. But the Easter Bunny is harmless. But to believe in a God called Allah, you're insane. There's only one God. And I believe that me and you are both Christians and we're both patriots. And just to show you how ridiculous their religion is, they raise these kids to grow up and strap bombs to themselves in the name of Allah. In fact, before they shoot off the bomb, they say Allahu Akbar, which means God is great. And they kill 8-year-old kids at an Ariana Grande concert in England. Rip them to shreds. That's their religion. That's what they teach them in those mosques. That's what the imams teach them. I have members of my family that are crazy. They're Muslims, and they're crazy. And they believe in this. They believe that the United States is the great devil. They teach these kids that from the time that they're up. So what I try and tell people is this. I'm a Christian. If I lived next door to another Christian who wanted to hurt the United States of America or people in the United States of America, I would pick up the phone and I would call my local federal office and I would tell on them, why aren't these people, you don't think the people at these mosques know that they have terrorists praying with them? Why, if it's supposed to be such a peaceful religion and it's misunderstood, why aren't the own members of that community standing up for people that are supposedly making their religion look bad? Wouldn't you stand up against them? Of course you would, unless you agreed with what they were doing. That's why these people they're not scared of them. They're protecting them because their religion is ridiculous. It's wicked. Their God is fake, and they want to do harm to the United States of America. And we were letting them in by the tens of thousands into our country. That's un-American. And then we have a man to stand up and say, it's okay for them to come, but can we ask them why they're coming here? And they said, you're a racist. That's what they accused Donald Trump of. What's going on, really? That's what I wanted. What's really going on?
Well, I guess we're going to find out, at some point in time, and I hope it's not too soon that we will find out about it, because we still need to try peaceful ways in order to bring resolve. Now, the resolve that we need, of course, is not just for this country, but for the world. And remember that the Lord promised 1,000 years of peace.
That's right.
So, if we believe anything, we have to believe everything.
That's right.
And
amen.
And so we can't turn our backs on God no matter what it takes.
That's right.
And some of these people who have died rather than giving up their faith, we can, even though we didn't know them, we can certainly appreciate the fact that they stood their ground, and regardless of what these people tried to impose upon them, they weren't coming over to the other side. We will find that there are people who do come over to the other side, that they'll pick up and even participate in some of their actions. And I'm going to give you some cases where that has happened here, even locally. You know that the Bundy standoff, where there are 1,000 people, armed people, at one time trying to protect state rights for Bundy. It wasn't about this cattle. It was about states' rights and his ability to carry on and maintain a living. He was one of the few ranchers and farmers who was able to withstand the FBI and the BLM's demands to take away the grazing lands, so that those grazing lands were no longer available to them. But the factor, the hidden factor, and things that they don't talk about, is that they had already another purpose for those, and whether it was the mining or the leasing of those federal lands, which, by the way, are our lands to begin with. The federal government doesn't own property. The BLM doesn't own property. Only the people of the United States. And so when we talk about this fight that we're hearing about with Bundy, we really need to come back to the facts. All the propaganda that's been fed to us is nothing more than lies.
Yeah.
And unless you know the real cause, like we said, we talked about the Civil War, and the real cause was states' rights.
That's right.
Well, guess what? Bundy's fight is against states' rights.
That's right.
So here we are coming back in a circle with collusion amongst the highest officials, going all the way to the U.S. Senate and Harry Reid.
That's right.
So we see history repeating itself.
Yes.
But history has a tendency to repeat itself in many other fashions, and one of those fashions is war.
Yeah.
Now, whether we like it or not, we're going to have to do something dramatic in order to stop the flow and the killings of Americans here in this city, and the fact that we have open borders is allowing them to come freely into the United States and do their damage.
That's right.
And even if they only bring a bag of gunpowder, just a small bag of gunpowder, and somehow sneak it into the United States, and there's 10 or 20 or 30 of them that are doing it, now they have enough for a huge explosion. Now, I'm not a bomb expert. I don't even know sure what goes into it. I think it's gunpowder, and I'm just assuming that's one way that they can cause a big bang and to destroy hundreds of people, willfully. Look at the 9/11 and the fact that 19 of those saboteurs were from Saudi Arabia makes us question why we're doing business and supplying them with the munitions, the airplanes, and the technology that they potentially could use against us. And so we have a lot to question our authorities on, but our authorities only use us to get elected. Once they get elected, their agenda comes into place, or the agenda of the particular party that has won. And how many times do we see people voting down party lines, and we know that they can't all think that way, that there has to be a reason for them to do it. And the reason probably is because they're going to sanction those individuals within their party, and they're not going anywhere in the party. So it shouldn't be all about where they're going as representatives of the United States and the people that they're supposed to represent. It should be about this country. It should be about the people who you told you were going to do this and you were going to do that, and then you find out once they're in office they don't even know your name. And I found it out the hard way. I've spent a lot of time, and you're aware of that.
Yes, sir.
Of the letters and so forth that I sent out, and it was with the best intentions. The best intentions are the welfare of this nation, to provide people with not just housing or education, but medical needs. As we get older, we find ourselves with more medical needs than we experienced in our younger life. And so when it comes to the decision to limit availability of this country to saboteurs and murderers, are we wrong in denying access to the group as a whole? Because remember, at one time during the Crusades, it was the Muslims against the Christians. And at that point in time, we successfully won that battle. But God has, again, presented this to us, maybe to enlighten us and to make sure that we understand that this planet doesn't belong to us, but it belongs to God.
That's right.
And that His law will stand in the end.
That's right.
I wanted to talk more and get an opinion from you, Chris, on why or what we should do with Dearborn, Michigan. Now, Dearborn, Michigan, as you know, is home to, I believe, 100,000 Muslims. All right. And as there have been Christian groups who have gone in there, very much like the Mormons go knocking door to door on bicycles and things like that, and trying to convince you that you're doing the wrong thing, that you need to become a more godly person. And these Christians had gone into that community and had rocks and frozen cans of beer thrown at them, and the police stood by and did nothing while the crowd of cheering and swearing Muslims continue to try to inflict pain and anger onto these Christians. When will we recognize that group, here it is, who are talking about, well, we need to vet this, and we're talking about an individual here and an individual there. What about these groups of people who are doing the same malicious acts and are sincere with their thoughts and their reaction and what they can do to upset America and its Christianity?
Well, I grew up Thankfully, I had two parents that were both Christians. My dad, like I said, was military. He was Christian. He's very hard on his family. He wasn't much of a church-going man himself, but he made us go to church with my mom every Sunday. And the one thing we learned is that if you believe the Bible, you believe the first word and the last word and every word in between. I believe we are in the time of revelation, and I believe that that's why God sent us a president like Donald Trump. I'm going to answer your question, but just to speak real quick on the Saudi Arabia thing, it was a slam dunk for him. He went over there and just won for the United States of America. And the reason why is because the United States, whether the people like it or not, we are the police of the entire world. Russia and China, you can't call them in time of need, and they show up and they send their troops. But basically, NATO is a form of the United States, and when there's something going on, whether it be a civil war in Yugoslavia or whatever, NATO, the United States, are there to try and make the peace. The only thing Donald Trump has been asking for, and he was asking for before he even became president, is that the 28 members of NATO give up 2% of their GDP like we do every year since NATO was formed. Only 3 countries pay 2% of their GDP, 25 don't. He went over to Saudi Arabia and he called out every country and he said, I'm telling you, I made a promise to the citizens of the United States that you all will pay up your 2% of the GDP this year. And the first thing I'm going to do is Saudi Arabia, that contract that you have with the United States for $110 billion worth of weapons, you're going to pay for it. Billion. If you want them, you're going to pay for them. That's the first thing he did. That was something that he promised Americans he was going to do. He's going to make those Middle Eastern countries start paying up for protection. Because make no mistake about it, if the United States didn't protect Saudi Arabia, they'd be attacked. They have no military to speak of, and they're sitting on a lot of oil. So Iran would be over there tomorrow if we stop protecting them. So he said, if you want our protection, you're going to pay. Number 2, these weapons that you get from Russia and these other countries, they're going to be made in America. That's another $110 billion contract. He made a quarter of $1 trillion when he was in Saudi Arabia for the United States of America. He saved us $110 billion and made them sign a $110 billion contract to get the weapons from us. That's going to put Americans back to work. He is a great president, and it's a damn shame that we have people fighting him every day of the week to stop him from doing his damn job. It is a crying shame. To speak on the Dearborn, Michigan thing, you know the Bible, Lou, better than I do, and you know that in the time of Revelations, they say Christians will be persecuted for their belief in Jesus Christ. I would just tell every Christian out there that never deny who God is, never deny who his son is, and make no mistake about it, if you read that book, you know in the end we win. So that's why every day I get up and I'm very confident in what's going to happen in this country and in everybody, all the country. The country's not going to be destroyed. It is not going to be destroyed. Us and Israel are going to win this war if you believe the Bible. If you don't, if you believe those demon books that people are trying to tell, the United States is going to fall. No, it's not. The United States is going to be the last beacon of Christianity in this world, and we are going to win. It's going to be 1,000 years of peace when Jesus comes and sets his kingdom back up on the world. The United States is not going to fall. That's what people wanted. They wanted to elect people like that Muslim Barack Obama and like Hillary Clinton, that's socialist, and they wanted to take America down. And the American citizens saw what was going on, and they said, oh no, you're not going to drag us down with you. We're going to put a man in here that wants to make America great again and protect America from those killers, from those losers, as he called them, coming into our country and killing our men, women, and children. So they can go on and do what they want to in Dearborn, Michigan, but they need to pick up the Bible and read it. They're going to lose in the end, and Christians are not going to deny Jesus, and this country is not going to go down the drain. This is God's country, and we will be standing in the end. I don't care who we fight, because God's army is going to join us. So the United States is going to be protected. Israel is going to be protected. No matter how they're surrounded, no matter how many countries want to get them. And Donald Trump is working toward keeping Israel safe and keeping the United States safe. And Russia and every other country, they better join with us. They better join with us, because we're not going to lose that war. And there's a lot of Christians in Russia. That used to be one of the most Christian nations before hundreds of years ago. You know, they've had religion taken from them, but they said the growth of the Christian church is coming back in Russia. You can't deny Jesus. You can't stop Jesus' word. This world, it's only one God and it's only one Son of God. And all these fake religions can say what they want to, but I know better. And I know that they're going to lose in the end. I don't care if you call them Allah, whatever you want to call them, they're going to lose in the end. And to strap your kids with bombs around them to go out here and kill people, men, women, and children, 8, 7 years old at a concert. That cannot be a real religion. And that can't be a real God that would tell you to do that, and that's okay. So I don't believe in them. And I think Christians should stand together. I think Americans should stand together. What God teaches us is to be patient, and he teaches us to not judge. And that's what my dad did. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are. You have to answer to God one day. I'm not your judge and jury. God is. My job is to be tolerant of you and to be an example to you. That's my job. My job is to teach you that your God is fake and my God is real. But my job is not to judge you or harm you or your family. But trust and believe the only way to God is through the Son. So you can believe whatever you want to. You can get down on that rug and pray as many times as you want. But you're not going to the kingdom of heaven unless you go through the Son. I know that for a fact. So that's on them. That's their choice. My job is not to judge them. My job is to tolerate them and to be a good American and a good Christian. But at the same time, if you attack my people, I will protect my people. You have a right in America to believe in what you want to believe in and live where you want to live. But when somebody's trying to come help you and give you the good word, even if you don't want to hear it, just say, not right now, I don't want to talk to you right now, whatever. But to hurt them, to throw rocks at them, to demean them, they're not going to heaven. I don't have to worry about seeing people like that or being with people like that. Me or you don't have to worry about that. They can be in their robes or their mask or whatever they want to be in because they're not going to be in the kingdom of heaven.
Chris, we're getting close to wrapping it up here, so I wanted to go over something that's really critical to me,
yes,
and that is, what we have done in past conflicts where we've taken prisoners, for example,
yes,
and we've taken prisoners in just about every single war that we've ever been in.
Yes.
One of the worst ones where we took prisoners was in the Civil War,
yeah,
where a lot of the Union troops were sent to Chancellorsville.
Yeah.
And about 94% of the people that went in there never came out.
Yeah.
All right, so that's just one example. But take the Japanese, for example. We put those people into concentration camps.
Yeah.
So when we get into conflicts in this, even in the Second War, we took Japanese and German pictures, and we had to put them someplace that was safe for us, so that they didn't break out and get that happening again.
Yeah.
And yet we seem to have reservations about doing something to the Muslims who we recognize are enemies.
Yeah.
Now, you can say they're nice people, and I can say they're nice people. I'm a nice person too.
Yeah.
But when you talk about my country, when you talk about my God, now you're provoking me.
That's right.
All right? And you're going to provoke me in the wrong way, because I'm going to say, wait a minute, this is where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Okay? And what I'm saying to you here is, even when we're dealing with minorities like today, for example, with, 60% of the criminal population in America are illegal?
Right.
Illegals?
Yeah.
All right. Didn't we put them someplace where we thought they would be safe?
Mm.
Unfortunately, we have seen them come out, and time after time after time,
Yeah.
they go back in.
That's right.
And they keep in and out of the country just like this. It's like playing checkers, and I think they've gotten used to the game to where they know that they're not going to hold them for long, and they can get away with whatever they want.
That's right.
My question to you for the day is this: what are we going to do about the Muslims? And shouldn't we be doing the exact same thing, like we did with the Indians, put them on reservations? Shouldn't we make sure that they can't do harm to America?
I think that I know we only got about a minute. My quick answer to that is, anybody that comes to this country, if you're not about the stars and the stripes, if you don't want to assimilate, if you don't want to learn English, there's nothing wrong with you keeping your culture. My mom was Cuban, but my mom learned English. When my mom came over here, she went to the University of Havana when she was in Cuba. When she came here, Roosevelt University in Chicago didn't accept any of her credits. She didn't cry about it. She went back to school and got her master's degree. And what she told me is, I'm in America, and when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So she learned English, even though it was broken. She spoke a lot like Rolando did, but she worked very hard, and she paid her taxes, and she assimilated, and she raised us to speak perfect English, and she raised us to be proud to be Americans. I'm very proud to be an American, and I think if you're not, not, then you should go back to wherever the hell you came from. And if you're not here to assimilate and to make this country better and to pay taxes, then you shouldn't be here. And if you commit a crime in this country, then you should be sent back to your country. Let them, the taxpayers of their country, pay to incarcerate you. Why are we paying for them to get 3 squares and a cot a day? That doesn't make any damn sense. And then to come back in this country and commit another crime. To wrap it up, there were the 2 Mexicans that, one was Mexican, one was from Guatemala, and they raped that little girl in Baltimore, 14 years old, and they had been thrown out of this country 4 times and came back into this country. Is something wrong? We need to get that wall built.
Well, would you say, and I've come to the conclusion that the only thing that we can do, that we've seen in history, complete throughout history, is when you are at war with someone, you take the prisoners or you make them incapable of responding anymore and get them to give up.
That's right.
Now, we didn't change the mindset of the Japanese in terms of their religion or anything. We haven't changed the mindset of Muslims in the past. We're not going to change the mindset of them in the future, but yet we need to stop them. So if that's the case, and we are using weapons of mass destruction and spending billions of dollars to bomb locations in Iraq and Iran and Libya, why in the world can't we say, hold on, we're going to start right here at home, protect our borders, get the borders closed, and take care of these people who are known enemies, regardless of whether they're nice people.
The good news is that we are, Lou. That's why we voted for Donald Trump. They said border crosses are down 70% from last year. It's all the questions that you asking are already beginning to happen. He's giving more money to Border Patrol. He's set aside $1.5 billion to start the construction of the wall. So we're just hoping that he gets the job done, that he gets the support from the Senate and the House that he needs, because he wants to keep us all safe. And, we're already starting. That's why we voted that man in office in the greatest upset that ever took place in political history. So, I think he's going to get the job done, or he's going to die trying. Donald Trump loves his country, and I think he's going to get that wall built. And I think that you're absolutely right. I think that if they keep going the way that they are, we need to put them in camps, or we need to get them the hell out of our country. But we should not sit here and allow. That was a shame. They showed pictures of what happened in England at a teenage concert. You had an 8-year-old girl ripped apart just going to her first concert in her life by these nuts. It makes absolutely no sense, and we're going to stop it. I know we're out of time.
Okay, Chris, we're going to have to wrap it up, and appreciate the fact that you've given your contribution, verbally at least, into the program. But hopefully that there's some people listening to us who will take us seriously and understand that what we have to do is necessary, that we don't have a choice anymore. We can't stand another 9/11. We can't stand another Boston massacre or any of these other things that have happened here and in this country in our lifespan, and expect that the future is going to be any better if we don't get it corrected now. We must get it corrected. And so, with the help of God and with the proper people, we can do that. This is Blu Laker at Radio Tribune in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's 717 South 9th Street at the corner of Charleston and 9th. And Chris, you have a final word, or you threw the mic away?
God bless America. God bless our troops. Godspeed to Donald Trump. Thank you, Lou, for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Until next week.